This is a story of how a cheap instrument, a boring baseball game, and a bad case of unrequited love accidentally created one of the biggest songs of all time. It's a story of a band on the verge of a global breakthrough they never saw coming, and a record label that was nervous about the very song that would change everything. Before R.E.M. was one of the biggest bands on the planet, they were the darlings of college rock, a cult favorite standing at creative crossroads. This is the untold story of their album Out of Time and the accidental masterpiece that almost wasn't, Losing My Religion. By the end of the 1980s, R.E.M. had built an incredible career. They had toured relentlessly, dropped 6 albums, and gathered a fiercely loyal fan base that loved their jangling guitars and Michael Stipe's cryptic political lyrics. They were, as some called them, the Reagan era's most level-headed protest rockers. But after the grueling tour for their 1988 album Green, something had to give. The band was fried. They decided to take the longest hiatus of their career, a much-needed break that would change how they made music forever. They were coming off their first album for a major label, a record that had pushed them to new heights. But the relentless machine of album, tour, album had taken its toll. The members scattered to decompress, and when they got back together, they were determined to do things differently. They were ready to shed their 1980s identity and explore new territory, even if they had no idea where that would lead. With the pressure off and a clean slate, this newfound freedom would pave the way for the most transformative work yet. The beginning of R.E.M.'s biggest hit didn't happen in a fancy studio or during some frantic, inspired jam session. It happened on a couch. Guitarist Peter Buck had recently bought a mandolin and was just figuring out how to play it. One night, while drinking a beer and watching a baseball game, he started messing around with it. He recorded his practice session on a boombox. He wasn't trying to write a song, he was just teaching his fingers how to move on this new instrument. He recorded the simple looping riff that came out of it, mostly as a note to himself, and then pretty much forgot about it. It was just a little melody, a happy accident born from boredom and a new toy. Buck himself didn't think much of it. In a band known for intricate guitar work and driving rock, this quiet, folksy tune didn't seem to fit, but that little cassette tape held the spark of something huge, a melody that would soon be heard all over the world. When the band started pulling together ideas for the next album, Peter Buck played that forgotten mandolin tape for the others. What started as a simple practice exercise quickly sparked into something more. Mike Mills, the band's melodic genius, wrote a bass line to anchor the floating riff. Bill Berry added a subtle, restrained drum pattern, being careful not to overpower the song's delicate core. The pieces were falling into place, but it still needed a voice and a story. This is where Michael Stipe came in. Hearing the melancholy, questioning the vibe of the music, he was inspired to write some of his most personal and direct lyrics ever. He pulled from a common Southern phrase, losing my religion. Now, for anyone outside the American South, the line was often taken as a crisis of faith. But its real meaning is way more universal. It's that feeling of being at the end of your rope, of losing your cool when you're pushed to the edge by pure desperation. Stipe channeled this into the agony of unrequited love, the obsessive thoughts, the second guessing, and that awful feeling of being on the outside looking in. This was a huge shift for him. He was known for these cryptic political lyrics, but here he was laying his emotions completely bare. The vulnerability in his voice, matched with that hypnotic mandolin, created something raw and totally captivating. To take it even further, the band brought in Mark Bingham to arrange a string section performed by the members of the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra, adding a touch of orchestral grandeur to the otherwise intimate song. The band knew they had something special. Producer Scott Litt, who was the key in shaping the sound, felt its power right away. But when they played Losing My Religion for their label, Warner Brothers Records, the reaction was very hesitant. The early 90s music scene was a chaotic mix of indie dance and the start of the grunge movement. At 4.5-minute song led by a mandolin with no real chorus, didn't exactly scream a hit single. Label execs were nervous. A Warner Brothers vice president later admitted there were long drawn-out discussions about releasing such an unconventional track as the lead single. The band, however, held their ground. They believed in the song and felt it represented their new direction. It was a gamble, putting out a strange song as a first single from a huge album that could have been a disaster. For a moment, the band's artistic vision was up against the commercial instincts of the music industry. That same experimental vibe from Losing My Religion started to spread to the rest of the album, which they titled Out of Time. The band fully embraced the new, looser way of making music. Peter Buck put his famous Rickenbacker electric guitar aside for much of the recording, choosing instead to play around with different acoustic instruments. The roles in the band even started to blur. Drummer Bill Berry stepped out from behind his kit to play bass on the moody Half a World Away and the raw emotional country feedback. Meanwhile, Mike Mills, usually on bass, found himself on the organ for the funky radio song and the atmospheric low. To flesh out the new sound, they brought in multi-instrumentalist Peter Holsapple from the band The DBS to play guitar on bass and a few tracks. His addition was a big shift, adding new textures and layers that cemented the collaborative feel of the whole project. In the midst of all this experimentation, a solution to the label's anxiety appeared in the form of another song, Shiny Happy People. It was everything Losing My Religion wasn't. It was bright, relentlessly cheerful, and pure pop. While some fans would later call it too sugary, it served a purpose. It was an undeniable earworm, a burst of joy that acted as a perfect commercial balance to the album's darker moments. It proved R.E.M's new era wasn't just about sadness, it was about exploring everything from abstract heartbreak to pure, unfiltered happiness. The collaborative spirit of Out of Time went just beyond the band. Looking for a unique voice, they turned to a fellow music legend from their hometown of Athens, Georgia, Kate Pearson of the B-52s. Her joyful, soaring vocals were the final ingredient for Shiny Happy People, turning it into an unforgettable duet. But she didn't stop there. She also added hauntingly beautiful backing vocals on the stark and powerful country feedback, helping to complete the album's rich sound. In one of the album's most surprising and forward-thinking moves, the band also reached out to hip-hop pioneer KRS-One for the opening track, Radio Song. The idea of blending alternative rock with a rap verse was a genre-bending experiment that was definitely not common back then. KRS-One not only delivered a verse, but expanded his role, improvising and adding even more to the track than the band had asked for. His powerful performance, layered over Mike Mills' funky organ, was a bold statement to kick off the album. It let everyone know this was not the R.E.M. they were used to. The song was only half the story. In the age of MTV, a music video could make or break a single. For Losing My Religion, R.E.M. hired a young visionary director named Tarsem Singh. What he delivered wasn't a typical band video, but a stunning piece of art cinema, drawing inspiration from dramatic lighting of the painter Caravaggio and the magical realism of author Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Singh created a surreal and uncomfortable visual world. The video was striking images of fallen angels, frantic dancing, and Stipe's intense, mesmerizing performance was just as unconventional as the song. It didn't tell a clear story, but instead captured a feeling, a sense of spiritual and emotional chaos that perfectly mirrored the song's themes. In a move that surprised everyone, MTV put the video into a heavy rotation. It was inescapable. The powerful visuals burned the song into the public's mind, helping to launch it up the charts and turn it into a cultural phenomenon. The video went on to dominate the 1991 MTV Video Music Awards, winning 6 awards including Video of the Year and cementing its place as one of the most iconic music videos ever made. The gamble paid off big time. Losing My Religion was released in February and it climbed to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US and became an anthem for a generation. When the full album dropped in March, it debuted at number 1 in the US and UK, which, by the way, is celebrating an anniversary, which I believe is 35 years. It will go on to sell over 45 million copies in the United States and an estimated 18 million copies worldwide. At the 1992 Grammy Awards, R.E.M. took home 3 awards, 1 for Best Alternative Music Album and 2 for Losing My Religion. R.E.M. was no longer a college rock band. They were an international phenomenon, one of the biggest bands on the planet. Of course, with that kind of success, the cries from early fans and critics that the bands had sold out, the pop friendliness of songs like Shiny Happy People to some felt like a calculated commercial move. But history sees it differently. Out of Time wasn't a sellout, it was a breakthrough. It was a sound of a band growing up, taking risks, and finding the courage to embrace sincerity. It was a natural step for a band that was never afraid to reinvent itself. What's your memory of hearing Losing My Religion for the first time? Did Out of Time change how you saw R.E.M? Let me know in the comments. And if you love stories about the accidental magic behind the music, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our next video. Usually at the time, I would direct you to another video for a different album review by this band, but since this is my first time reviewing this band, check out this playlist with the other anniversary reviews from this year. And in the meantime, thanks for watching. Please like the video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.